I've always wanted to associate with people that are inspirational. I did not have the opportunity of interacting with my father a lot. For lack of a better term, there are some people who are gullible.
Okay, Mr. B Flow, thank you so much for giving us time on Z Flashback.
Thank you so much. It's good to be on Z Flashback.
Let me tell you a story. So this is the story I want to start with. In 2012, was it 2011? I did the video for Go Getter. And I won't make this about me. But you featured in the video. In the video, I, with the help of the late Mandiva, with the help of Chuma, we gathered people that we thought were inspirational, people that were making an impact in Zambia.
Right.
And you happened to be in the video as well. You know, it was an honor to have you. So the lesson that I learned based on my interaction with something that you did helps to make me realize my impact or lack of impact with a certain generation. So here's the story. The video was wrapped. Then you posted on your page, you posted that you featured in the video with the legendary Chilu Lemba, blah, 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 right? And I was like, hey, this is so cool, man. I'm grateful for Brian to, you know, to do that. Then I went into the comments. Then I found like, who is this guy? Who is this Chilu Lemba? We don't know him. Hey, Brian, you should help promote this guy. So I realized, oh, flip, man, there's a generation that doesn't know. So thank you, man.
That's so funny.
No, it was a lesson learned.
Wow,
yeah.
wow,
No,
wow.
but I say it in a good way because I think what happens with some of us guys who've been around for a while is that we take it for granted that we're still relevant in certain circles, whereas we might not be. And so we need those wake-up calls. But
that's quite funny because, was it yesterday? I think I met you like 2 days ago at the mall. And then I went home and I was telling my wife, like, oh, so I was with, you know, legendary Chilu Lemba. We were having a conversation at the mall. And then this influencer passed. And then he said hi to me, but he didn't say hi to Chilu. So I was wondering, I was like, does he know who he is?
No, man, but it's the same thing. And I think it's good to realize, I mean, here's a typical example. For some of us, for a long time, Will Smith was Will Smith.
Right.
But to another generation, he was like, you know, Willow's dad. Or you know, I forget the
Whereas to some people, he was just the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Exactly, exactly. So different generations. What I'm finding now is that some people will meet me and introduce me as the guy who did Njota. But then, because they know the musical side of me, some guys will know me from Radio Phoenix. So they're different eras. But anyway, that's this interview is not about me, it's about you. But let's start with that moment though. What do you remember about the Go Getter music video shoot? Because that was 11 years ago or something. From, if my memory serves me right, I think it was 2011. So at that time, I had just released my second album, No More Kawilo, and so I was rocking. I was rocking the airwaves, and so I think you invited me through TK, who was my producer. And so we came through for the shoot, and I saw all these amazing people who are equally doing big things. I saw Zone Fam and many other artists who were there. And for me, in that moment, it was all about, like, finally I get to meet Chilu Lemba, and finally I get to be where he is, because we used to have a lot of conversations about you with TK. And TK would always tell me all these amazing things that you do in SA and how you take care of people in a good way whenever they come, you know, to visit SA. And he would talk about how you were running things when it comes to, you know, the voiceover industry and entertainment in SA. I'm like, wow, Zambia has such a big export in Chilu Lemba. And because I had listened to your music way back from the times of the Rhythm Nation project, and what you did with the likes of Jochiwangu. And so that opportunity for me was like a moment of growth for me, because what it did was, other than the music that I was doing myself, having the opportunity of being featured on a video for an artist who is a legend, then sort of elevates me to the next level, because the audience that knows you from way back from the 90s and the early 2000s then gets to see me and say, oh, who's this young man
in the video,
in Chilulemba's video, you know? So when they will listen to No More Kawilo and they see me and they listen to me and they see me there, I think there's something that it does to my brand as well, because of the association.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to associate with people that are inspirational, people that inspire me, because then in a way it helps me to grow, and it helps people to sort of trust my brand because of who I'm associated with. Yeah. So I really love that moment. When I look back today, it's a bittersweet moment, because some of the people that we collaborated with there in that video, and we had great conversations with, the people that we were filming with, are no longer here. Look at the likes of Mandiva, Kaliwa, the Black Stallion,
Joe
Chibangu himself. Yeah, so it's a bittersweet moment. It's a great memory to know that we were able to do things together. We even took pictures together, which I still post here and there for my throwbacks. But again, it's sad that they're not here. Yeah, but we're grateful for the time that we spent with them.
No, thanks, man. And I said this conversation was going to be about me, so I probably need to then zoom in on you, because this is the Brian B Flow conversation. But it was so good, man. When I look at that video, it brings back so many memories. Let's talk about Kabwe, man.
Yeah.
Because the town is small, if we're honest. I spent some time in Dallas.
Oh, you did? You did?
Brief some days, you know what I mean? I don't know if you know Colonel Ngandwe and that family. So Mweshi Ngandwe was like back at school my closest friend. So, they hosted me graciously at their house back then. So I got introduced to Kabwe through them.
Okay.
But Kabwe has produced some big names, you being one of them, the other gentleman as well, who we all know, who's doing well from Kabwe. But tell me about your childhood back then. You know, we hear every now and again you talk about how it was growing up, but what do you kind of remember from the early days of you being in Kabwe?
Yeah. Well, because you've mentioned the fact that Kabwe has produced a lot of icons. I wish I could give you like a whole list, but that would take us the whole day. Yeah. There's so many, even those that I didn't even know were born in Kabwe or grew up in Kabwe, but we can talk about it later. So growing up in Kabwe, for me, some of my fondest memories include my early days, like starting school at the age of 3 or 4, preschool. And funny enough, would you like to guess the name of my preschool?
You're going to say something like Kabwe Preschool.
Jack and Jill.
Really? I was a Jack. No, was it? Yeah, I was a Jack and Jill too.
Yeah. That's why I mentioned it, because I watched one of your interviews and you mentioned that you went to Jack and Jill in Lusaka.
Wow.
So I went to Jack and Jill in Kabwe.
Wow.
Yeah, we had Jack and Jill in Kabwe. Then I started school, like primary school, at a school called Kasanda Malombe Primary School.
Yeah.
And Kasanda Malombe was a government school. I think now it's like a junior high or something.
Okay.
I think it's been elevated a bit. Yeah, but it was a primary school at the time, and so I spent 4 years there. And during my time at Kasanda Malombe, there was a time I had to repeat from 4th grade to 3rd grade, because apparently I started school a bit younger than
the others.
Than the age I'm supposed to enroll into school, because my grandmother was a head teacher at a school called Katondo Primary School, and so she used to offer me some lessons at home before I could actually get to grade 1.
So you were advanced.
I was kind of advanced, and so I started school, but then at school one time, I think someone was doing some inspections on our age and whatnot, and then said, well, you started school before you were 7, so you need to go back to grade 3. And that I didn't like that.
That happened to me as well, though.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I had to repeat a grade and similar vibe where there's an excuse, man. I hated that. So I can empathize, yeah.
Yeah, but the moment I went back to 3rd grade, I performed so well than I did when I was in 3rd grade the previous year. And so that really prepared me well. But I think my school somehow was affected by some of the events that were happening in my life. So my mom got a job in Serenge.
Yeah.
And I had to leave Kabwe in 4th grade. Yeah. So we went to Serenge and spent 3 years there. Then again in 7th grade, back to Kabwe. So in Serenge, I went to Boma Basic School, was just primary and basic school. Then went back to Kabwe, went to Broadway, did my 7th grade, and then I passed to grade 8. Then I went to Kabwe High School or Kabwe Secondary School until I completed. So during my time at Broadway and Kabwe, I feel like that's the moment when even the interest in music came about. But I think initially the interest, I think, came as a result of wanting to mimic the people that I would watch on TV.
Yeah.
Like, for example, when Will Smith had the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air it was running on ZNBC, obviously, I think it was like years after the original, after the initial time. Because I'm thinking initially that show was shot in maybe in this 80s,
I think
right?
it was shot...
80s?
I suspect it was shot around
early
like
90s.
early 90s.
Yeah, so then that's correct. Yeah, so I was watching that show because it used to come on the national broadcaster.
Yeah.
And so now this is a story of my life. So that always just made me want to get into rap music and all those things. And then coming to listen to artists like the Fugees, you know, Ready or Not, Here I Come, Shaggy, the times of Mr. Bombastic, very fantastic.
Yeah.
And then I think Boom Shaka as well, South Africa those days. Yeah.
So that's what made you like kind of lean towards dancehall or ragamuffin, that kind of vibe.
Yes. And then my mom's love for reggae music as well. My mom loved Lucky Dube, Bob Marley, Ijaman, Peter Tosh, Get Up, Stand Up, and all that music. Yeah, so that kind of influenced me to want to do music all the time. But one of the fondest memories of my childhood was when I was about 7. And then after watching one of those artists on TV, on our black and white TV, I went outside the house and stood on this table that was, outside our house. And I started singing what I was watching on TV, like just mimicking what they were doing. And then I had closed my eyes while singing. One of the artists I used to love a lot was Victor Kachaka.
Oh, yeah.
Victor Kachaka and Ballad Zulu. It is true. Yeah. Oh, Akitivi, it is. Yeah, so I think I was singing one of those songs and I closed my eyes. Then this woman who lived next door was standing right behind me and I didn't know that she was standing there.
Yeah.
And then after I finished singing, I just found her clapping like one of those movie scenes.
Wow.
Yeah. Then she says, wow. We mwana yore mbawino, mwana yakaba musician one day. So that was the first time.
Seed planted, yeah.
Yeah, that was the first time I think somebody ever spoke about music with relation to me. The only other time I think it was one of my uncles was telling me I was making too much noise whenever Will Smith was rapping on the SIG tune for Fresh Prince. Yeah, because I was always like rap along, and then my uncle would say, "You are making noise, making noise." And then when you watch things like Zankalewa, I also get my shirts and put them, under my t-shirt like that, and make the
belly and start
and dance. So those are my memories of how like the interest for music grew. But by 8th grade, after we left Serenge and went back to Kabwe, that's around the time I started participating in things like, talent contests.
Okay.
Where there's like a singing competition here and there. Yeah, so around those days, I interacted with artists like like General Ozzy.
Because they used to come to Kabwe to perform, or
General Ozzy was based in Kabwe.
Oh, really? I didn't know.
He was also, he's also from Kabwe.
So Roberto also.
Roberto is from Kabwe too. Wow, yeah. So at the time, Roberto was not around. He was based in South Africa.
Yes.
Yeah. So it was the likes of Ozzy. There was Damiano. There was a group called the B3. Yeah. They used to do gospel music, and then I think one of them by the name of Marvin, the late Marvin, broke away from that group, but. Yeah, he was one of those people that also used to participate in those auditions and talent contests. So yeah, so I would always be, I was in between rap and dance hall. I was trying to figure it out. So whenever I'm singing, I would always be, you know, hitting my chest like that, like
to make a rhythm.
Yes, making a rhythm like that.
So rhythm, as you'd say. Rhythm.
Yeah, rhythm. Me, I make a rhythm, you know. So after doing that, people would always walk up to me and they say, "You have such a nice flow." So at the time, I used to call myself Attic B.
Attic?
Yeah, Attic B. Yeah. At some point, I think we also called ourselves the Natty Boys. We were busy looking for names in the dictionary, any word that looks like, oh, it's cool, Attic. I'll just add a B, you know, somewhere. Yeah. At some point, I think because of Brian McKnight and me being Brian, I think I called myself McB or something. Yeah, but in that moment, everybody would tell me, I love the way you flow. Oh, that was a nice flow.
Yeah.
Tight flow.
Yeah.
So one day I asked this girl, I was like, this was during an audition. I asked this girl, I was like, why do you call what I do a flow?
Yeah.
Why can't you say what you're saying to everybody else? Like, oh, you sing well. I like the way you were singing. I like the way you sing. How come for me, everybody tells me they love the way I flow?
Yeah.
So that was the first time somebody explained to me like the concept of hip hop and what the significance of a flow and what it means. It's like, oh, interesting. Punchlines and bars.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, interesting. Well, since everybody says I can flow and my name is Brian, I would get B from Brian and flow from the compliments of the people. And that's how I came up about the name.
So now I've got a question for you. We're talking about foundationally how these things were unfolding. And you've mentioned your grandmother, who was an educator, who had a role in your life. You mentioned your mother, may soul rest in peace. You speak about her a lot. Your dad, we know that he was involved with Kabwe warriors, and what I wanted to find out is, because I've been thinking about it in my own life of late. My dad died 26 years ago. Yesterday, as we record this, was his birthday, or should have been his birthday.
Wow.
But I sometimes now, start reflecting on my interactions with him, because, with time, it's almost like you're robbed of a lot of those. What was like your connection with your dad, especially now that you're a dad yourself? I'm just trying to see if there are any significant memories or anything that you have that connects you to his memory, whether it's a vacuum or whether it was enriching. I don't know if you've got any thoughts.
I think for me it's more of a vacuum, and also it's always been like quite confusing a bit because my mom and my dad separated right at the beginning, like when I was about 1, and so I did not have the opportunity of interacting with my father a lot, but I was also very curious and very inquisitive, and I would always ask my mom these questions, and she didn't want to give me the answers at the time because maybe of my age, and maybe I couldn't understand what was going on and the events that transpired. All I knew was that, my dad was married somewhere else, and he had other kids, and I really wanted to have a relationship with him, and I also wanted to have a relationship with these other siblings that are on my dad's side, but I couldn't really achieve much in those areas. So what used to happen was, whenever I heard that Kabwe warriors were playing at home, I would always find a way of going there, like
to the stadium.
To the stadium, I would tell my friends, like, "Let's go, guys! You need to see my dad. You need to see my dad." But the thing is, when you get to the stadium, you need to pay. So if I don't have the money, it means you have to wait for. Usually they would open it up after halftime. that's when we would go in, and then I would find a way of trying to go to where, where the coach is, and for me to have a conversation with him. But it wasn't very easy to get that as well, because he would be overwhelmed. He's busy with the team, and everybody's like talking to the coach, and he is this little kid trying to find his way through the people to say, hey, Dad, it's me, it's me. Yeah. You know, so for me, that struggle, like even just the struggle to access my dad in such moments really affected me, because then I would always wonder, like, why is it so different for me? Because one of my younger brothers who used to live with him would actually literally walk in just before Kabwe Warriors would walk into the actual stadium, like in the actual pitch. Yeah. So he would. So he come in with a team, or he was like part of the. In front, and he kicks the ball, and then he'd be running, and I would always wonder, like, why can't I be a part of that? Yeah. So these are conversations that I would have with my mom, like, I see that, and I wonder why I can't also be a part of that. Why don't I have, what were they calling that card? I don't know if it was called like a seasonal card or something. Yes. For a particular season. Yeah, so like, why can't I access that? Why can't it be so easy for me? Because my dad is the coach. You know, at they now call it the Yuka Chitalu Stadium, because my dad deputized Godfrey Chitalu. He was the assistant coach, and then after Chitalu died, my dad then became coach and manager for Kabwe Warriors. Yeah, so for me, those were real struggles until one time one of my aunties, my dad's sister, really wanted me to, you know, like, get to meet my dad. At that time, I think I was about 9. And so she took me there, and I had a conversation with him. I asked him some questions like, why don't I live with you? Why is it that my other siblings are here and I'm not here? And he says, you can't understand. And he said, you can't understand. So for me, all those were real struggles. And the last time I saw him was when he was on his deathbed, and someone came to tell me to say, your dad was asking why you are not at the hospital. So I really wanted to see him and have a conversation with him. So I went there, and we spoke briefly, but he didn't speak much. And then the next day, we got the news of his demise. And so I was still left confused. Like, I don't really know much. So me being a dad today, what this does, what all that experience does is it makes me really want to do what was not done for me. It makes me want to be there for my children. It makes me want to live in the same home with my children. So it makes me want to work hard to ensure that even my marriage actually works, so that I can be a part of that whole experience that I never got to have.
You know what it is? It's like, sometimes we, like you said, we learn from either the vacuums that we had, because there's a lesson in that, or if the glass was full, we have an opportunity to learn either way. And there's some things which, even when I consider life now as a father and you know, as a husband, our parents weren't perfect, and I think sometimes they failed to articulate situations because they thought we were too young to handle certain information. But out of growth and out of you know, opportunities that we have now to look at life as an older person, then you can maybe better be able to contextualize, like, okay, it was rough, you know what I mean?
Like, so, probably this is what was happening at this particular time.
Exactly. So you're able to either you know, take the lesson or afford them grace in terms of whether it be forgiveness or whatever. Like, okay, you know, this was a difficult situation. I agree. You know what I mean? Like, as I speak to you now, I'm 48. My father passed when he was 50. So in terms of all his experiences, you know what I mean? I'm like 2 years from the max of his experiences. And so I'm able to contextualize, like, oh man, he must have been going through, because if this happened when he was 32, or if this happened when, you know, it's also rough for, you know, because we're all human, we're not perfect.
That's true.
Do you have siblings though, like full siblings?
Yes.
Okay.
So Terence. who is here in Lusaka.
Younger or older?
Younger.
Okay.
Yeah. So then on dad's side, I have 3 sisters and 1 brother.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's another. It might be like because I had very different questions, but I'm enjoying where this is going. The thing is, like, when you've just mentioned 2 days ago or 3 days ago we were at Monday Hill. What I realized then is that you connect with different audiences. So you obviously as an artist, as B-Flow, as a groundbreaking person, you connect with people at the highest offices in government, NGOs, whatever it is. But at the same time, you also connect with the everyday ordinary guys there. I think you just come from the shops, you just done a bit of shopping. Guys are saying hi to you, whatnot, and you keep it moving. So with that, sometimes people struggle to find a balance, because if you're connecting with guys in high office, it's very easy for you to just say, that's me, you know what I mean, I'm made. Whereas, you know what I mean, whereas you've got that pressure and responsibility of, no, I'm still one among us. You know what I mean? How do you create that balance?
I think that so there's this saying that failing to prepare is preparing to fail.
Yeah,
and I feel like I prepared adequately for fame before I became famous. I was one of those people that did a lot of research into the lives of musicians and footballers and people in the entertainment industry. And I did see a lot of things from the outside, where, for example, I could hear about like the lifestyle and how people get so excited, and how there are these different cultures, like the culture of towing, and other cultures like, people have to consume certain, like certain, what would you call them? Psychoactive substances, whether it's drugs, in order for them to feel high and for them to feel like now they are, in a celebrity space. And so, having done a lot of research around that, then I also wanted to see it from the Zambian context and got to see how even like artists who would come to perform in Kabwe would treat fans like me when I wanted to have a conversation with them. Like if I say, Bakamba, I am a big fan of your music and I would just like to ask you a few questions. What does it take to be an artist like you? But just to see how they would respond, and how sometimes they wouldn't want to talk to you, and how, some people that we thought we knew also like changed and all those things. It made me think like I wouldn't want to do that, because I know how much I want to have a fan base. And so if I ever get a fan base, I don't think I will ever look at them like, hey, you are below me and I'm the star. Because I think that essentially they are the ones that enable you to be where you are, because of the support that they give you as a result of your talent. So coming from that background, I feel like my mom also played a role, because she was really a humble person herself. So I think I got to take a leaf from her lifestyle and how she interacted with people, because she was the only model I could see in front of me, since I didn't have like a father figure there. Once in a while, I'd interact with my uncles, but I lived with my mom. And so how she treated people had like a ripple effect on how I would treat people as well, how she would treat my friends, how she would treat strangers, even on the streets, and how she would help people. So that really, for me, kind of helped to shape my character as well, on how I was going to treat people. So once I got into the music business and it started to like work out and take shape, naturally, I didn't do much in terms of like planning. I already planned to say I was just going to keep it real, and I was going to be different. I wasn't going to participate in certain things that I would expect to find in the industry. And even though I was looking from the outside, when I found those things actually happening in the industry, I still told myself I'm going to stay principled. But again, because of the aspect of collaboration, you still need to be found with people in certain places, but you don't necessarily have to participate in everything. You can only participate in the work part of things. And then also, I didn't want to look judgmental towards like my colleagues and peers in the industry when they did things that I did not agree with.
Okay.
But I would just stay there and just try to make them feel comfortable. Yeah. So I noticed that when I started doing some of my like earliest events, like one of the events I did in South Africa in Joburg one time, and I was having a conversation with one of the Zambians living there at the time. So he described me as a very humble artist, like down to earth, and he couldn't believe it that an artist that was, making, a lot of noise musically would be that humble. And so when he said that, I was like, oh, okay, he thinks I'm humble. I didn't even realize it. So I feel like it was happening naturally. And I kept getting this compliment over the years. And I feel like somehow the fact that people also spotted it in me also helped me to even work towards it even more, because I realized that it's been one of my strengths. And it's one of the things that has helped me even to get into some of those spaces that you mentioned, whether it's me getting to make friends in high places, be it ambassadors or presidents or diplomats or CEOs of big corporations. I think it's because of how I would handle my fame, because after a performance and then this person approaches me and says, oh, B-Flow, we like what you're doing, how I would talk to them, usually I would get that compliment where they say, you're so humble for a celebrity like yourself. I didn't expect you to be this humble. And from there, I think the interaction would move forward. And I think also I think I have a way of socializing with people at different levels. And so,
but that's the thing. So it's from my observation, and I might be wrong. A lot of us, when we connect with people at different levels in society, we do that code switching story, right? Whereas there's also a thing where you're authentically you in different spaces. And this is what I picked up, like this is what I'm thinking you're like, because it's not like I'll give you, it's a silly story, but just for context, when I was a kid, we used to live near the Salvation Army in Villa. And so we used to interact with the missionaries' kids. There was a kid called Andrew. Andrew was a European, young boy. And so when we were playing with Andrew and, the other kids, Andrew would be like, I was with the Weckmans and the Weckmans did, you know what I mean? And he'd be speaking like that, right? And then his mother would call him Andrew and then he'd go, Mommy. So that's like typical code switching where like you don't care that, but if you're yourself, you know what I mean? Andrew could have been himself with us the same way. And it's a lesson to all of us. So that's what I think in your case, where it's like constant. What the way you communicate with this guy is the same way at a different level. From my observation of you. But I want to ask you a different question now. With all this stuff that's happening, because you communicate with your fan base, they accept you, they appreciate you, but there's the online fan base which has genuine people, and then it's got trolls as well, all mishmashed in there, which could lead to a lot of pressure on a person. And I'm just wondering how, because you've been from a distance, I've watched sometimes when people just decide like, no, today's we're gonna get B-Flow Day.
Yes.
Like, I could mention a few incidents, but I don't have to. How do you handle that pressure? How do you do it such that it doesn't affect you?
And actually, because I had spoken about preparing for fame, I think that's a side of fame that most of us never prepared for. I never prepared to be criticized in a negative way. I think I prepared to be critiqued where somebody just says, "Well, you could do better in this and you could do better in that," but I never prepared for
the vicious vitriol.
Exactly. you know, the keyboard warriors.
Yeah.
And there are so many on social media. And sometimes when we're analyzing the different social media platforms, we start even to say, well, it looks like Twitter has got this type of people. Instagram has got these people who don't troll, who don't cyberbully anybody. And then Facebook has got all these people, like it's for everybody. And I think that's where a lot of it comes or happens. And so in terms of preparing, I never ever prepared on how I would handle these situations. And as a human being, it does get to me in different times when I feel, oh, here I'm being misunderstood, and here these people have taken this conversation all the way there. It didn't have to be this. How do I defend myself? Yeah, but over the years, I think I've also learned from people who've handled criticism by just studying, like, oh, how did this person handle criticism? How did Mandela handle it? How did Obama handle this? How did Given Lubinda handle this? How did HH handle it? How did this one handle this? And so from all those experiences of other people, I tend to learn some lessons to say, oh, this person handled it by just keeping quiet, and then it just dies down. And this other person saw the need to respond, because we also live in a society where, for lack of a better term, there are some people who are gullible. Yeah. And they can easily fall for anything that they see on the internet. If somebody wrongly reports about Chilulemba today, even if it's not true or there's no element of truth in it, other people will just take it as it is because they saw it on social media, and they'll go like, oh, this is what Chilulemba has done, or this is what Chilulemba does, you know. And so there are moments I calculate, and I say, in this moment, I think I can respond to this in a formal way, whether it means to do like a press statement, or whether I will try and intelligently handle this matter by talking to this person, or I will just keep quiet, because I've also seen that there are certain situations which, when you comment on them, you just now
fan the flames.
Exactly. Then it just gets worse. Yeah. Yeah. So I think it's been work in progress, and I've been learning over the years to say, oh, certain things you just don't respond. Other things you need to respond to correct the situation, or to help people understand the real context of something. Yeah. But it has affected me in different times. Like I remember back in 2014 when I first went to for my YALI program, the Young African Leaders Initiative, and I went to the States for my civic leadership training, and so many things happened in my life at that time, because I had just lost my mom, and I also lost a very close friend and associate and fellow artist, that's PJ. So PJ and my mom both died in the same month, which was the month of December 2014. So I lost my mom on the 7th, and we lost PJ on the 21st of December. And then I go for this program while I'm in this period of, you know, mourning and trying to understand what's going on in my life, why I'm losing so many of these dear people, yeah. And then while I'm in the States, and then this highly spoken about Obama moment gets to happen, where
Brian Wembia from Zambia.
You know? So now when this happens, then I start reading things on the internet, and people are saying there's no way that Obama, out of all these artists in the world, can just name check B-Flow or like single him out. What's so special about him? Just recently he lost his mom and he lost his good friend PJ. No, there's something fishy here. I think this guy is Illuminati or something.
Serious?
Yeah, like all these things. And you know, because in that moment, you know, I was still in grief, and then I start seeing people saying, oh, he probably killed his mom, probably killed his brother, and whatnot and whatnot. Yeah, so those were some of the earliest days when I was getting to see like that type of criticism in the online space. Yeah. And I'm like, how do you even handle this? How do you deal with this? How do you respond to this? And I decided just not to respond. And during PJ's funeral as well, when PJ died, I took it upon myself that I wanted to really help out. Like I saw you did a lot of things when Joe Chibango died, where you feel the need to do something for a friend. And so I did a lot of running around. I go to movie TV, I go to sounds, I go to anybody that is involved in the entertainment industry to say, can you make a donation towards this funeral? And I bought this book where I was recording, and I made them sign against the amounts that accountability. There's accountability. Then I went and handed over that book to the family and said, "Oh, these are the monies that I've been able to raise, and here is the money." And then on the internet, there's like a whole different story where there are people who just believe you haven't done anything for your friend, and even later on when I helped the family to by facilitating like the collection of some royalties, whether it's from Zamcorps or whether it's from the telecommunication companies that were doing coloring back tones and whatnot. And so the money went to the family, and they were in the process of doing like a tombstone for PJ. And then there are all these other stories where they're saying, look at these people, B-Flow, you've neglected your friend and you couldn't even put a tombstone and whatnot. And so even in all these moments, I felt, do I defend myself or do I just keep quiet? Yeah. So it's...
But with that said, do you have like somebody who you can almost like a I wouldn't say like a mentor, but somebody who helps to keep you sane in such moments, or accountable to yourself, or to remind you, or do you have any of that thing as well that you can fall back to? I'm just wondering.
So from the start of my music career, just before I got the acclaim that made people know me to say, oh, there's B-Flow, I used to interact with a certain gentleman called Ignatius Chongu.
The lawyer.
The lawyer, yes. And so Ignatius was my mentor, who really like helped to find direction in terms of how I would do things. He helped me write my strategic plan. So I wrote my 2-year plan, I wrote my 3-year plan, we wrote my 10-year plan, and I wrote my 5-year plan as well. So we had this document. I even laminated it just to make sure that I follow through. And so I had plans where we say, oh, in this 2 years, I'm going to release an album, I'm going to save some money, I'm going to help my mom pay for my brother's school fees and different things. So he helped me like structure it so well. And whenever things were seemingly going wrong on my end, I'd always like run to him and say I need some guidance. Other times he would visit me here. He had moved to Kitwe. Other times I would visit him and we would have conversations and we would talk about these things. And then over the years, I also got to just like meet other people. One of them is a good friend of yours, Kamiza.
Yes.
Who I would also like just talk to about some of the things I can or cannot do in this space, just for me to have a better understanding by learning from people who've
had the journey.
Exactly. Yeah. So I've had quite a good support system, and at some point I also used to have a lot of conversations with Eric Schultz, former U.S. ambassador, who I would also talk to and just ask a few questions when I wasn't sure about something. Like there was a time when I think I also like felt or got tempted to accept one of those, those political monies that they offer artists, where they say, oh, get this money and do a campaign song for us or something. Yeah. So in one of those moments, I went to ask, I said, do you think this is good for me? And, he advised me to say, no, actually there's life after elections. So that has stuck. To this day, whenever there are elections and artists are getting monies and then the backlash comes, for me, it's something I was prepared for, because I would always have conversations with people like that to say, oh, there's life after elections. And another person who's been very helpful in that area of I could vent to whenever there's such things going on, whether it's criticism, is Smooth IK, Innocent Kalama.
Yeah, no, that's a good man. All right, I'm gonna ask you the last question, and then I've got a suggestion for you, which I think you'll find amusing. But And we need to do a part 2, man, because there's so many sides of you. Here it was more or less just to touch on some parts that I haven't heard discussed before with you, and I'm grateful that you've been gracious enough to share some of those.
It feels therapeutic as well, because I've never talked about them publicly.
Yeah. Even for me, let me tell you, man, it's like, yeah. But going forward, you've got a lot of pressure on you in terms of how you've positioned yourself with music for change. I mean, that in itself is a mission statement, which can also be a burden.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Depending on how you view it, because sometimes maybe you just want to do a fun song, but then maybe at the back of your mind you're thinking like, I probably need to inject some consciousness in here. And so when it comes to it now, looking at you in the next, I don't know, let's say 5 years, do you see yourself, in terms of your output, more on the music side or more on the mission activism side? What do you think will grab more of your attention and more of your time?
Yeah. So these are things I have been thinking about. And these are conversations I've been having with myself to say, so what next from here? And also, these days we keep hearing people talking about retiring, and which I don't agree with the idea of retiring from your talent, because it's inborn, it's inherent, it's God-given, and it'll always be there. I feel like there comes a time where you think you've retired, but then you just feel like, what are they doing there? I need to participate. You know what I mean? I think for you as well, it might happen in future if you ever decide to just go and settle somewhere else and not do voiceovers, and you hear people doing it a certain way and you're like, I can still do that. So I don't necessarily look at retiring, but I look at what will I do? And it's one of those conversations I've been having with myself, because there's also a thin line between activism and politics, because the things that activists talk about are the things that politicians are supposed to be implementing. So then you also start seeing like there's a certain section of society that is telling you like, oh, why don't you become an MP? Why don't you vie for this position in future so that you can actually actualize the things that you speak about? Because you can't just keep talking. You need to sit at the decision-making table. So there are all these conversations going on. And then there is, I cannot stop doing music. I love it so much. This is something I've grown up doing. But then even the same activism and advocacy side of things, it's something that has always been in me, because from my high school days, and I was always involved in these extracurricular activities, clubs. I was school head boy. I was the president for the anti-AIDS club. I was the president for the debate club, and I was always involved in peer education. So from the way I look at things, I want to be able to combine the different things that I do. So I'm looking to setting up a foundation very soon. It's already in the works. Having a foundation where I can champion these other causes like my advocacy work, and do things for the kids and give them a platform where they can learn, whether it's about music and also about leadership, like civic leadership. On the other hand, currently I have a studio, so I would like to also continue mentoring younger artists by giving them a platform to even record and learn more about music. So that's on the music front. I'm not sure whether I would also go into music management, because I feel like I can also play a role in terms of branding for artists to know how to position themselves, because I feel a lot of artists get into the music industry and they are just entertainers, but they don't really get to understand the business side of things, like how I've been able to leverage relationships with, whether it's the corporate world, whether it's the embassies or government officials. How do you as an artist position yourself to be in those spaces and also be a social entrepreneur, a person who contributes to social good, but at the same time makes a profit? Yeah.
Okay, no, it sounds amazing. So I've got one more question. I know I said that was the last one, but discipline in terms of your physical health and mental health, you seem to be getting it right.
Thank you.
Well,
finally.
Yeah, well, righter than me. If there's such a, I'm bastardizing the king's language. But why is it important for you to stay in shape and maintain that regime? What's it for you? Everyone has different reasons. Some it's for looking good, but what keeps you going when you don't feel like you should be going?
Wow. As cliche as it may sound, health is wealth. But for me, I think it's mainly for my mental health. The physical fitness actually affects the mental health in a positive way. When I'm fit physically, I'm also fit mentally. And I've also come to learn in my course of this fitness journey, I've come to learn that the more I commit to the whole, fitness process, the more it helps me to build my discipline, even in other areas of life.
Yeah.
The same way I have to wake up every morning at 6 to hit the gym and do my workout, is the same way I find myself now getting more disciplined in committing even to other things and making sure that I keep time, and I make sure that I follow through and I deliver certain things within a particular time. And I think it's really working for me. It's really, really working for me. And these days, it's even getting better when you get a compliment from another person. When there's in our gym, there's one of the quotes on the wall where they say, I'm trying to remember exactly how it's phrased, but they say something like, when you see results, it becomes an addiction.
Oh, yeah.
So, but sometimes I also interpret it as when other people tell you about your results, it becomes more of an addiction, because then you see, oh, so it's actually working. People are even noticing that some things.
We're noticing, man. You make us feel bad. No, I'm teasing it.
So it's good for your mental health. It's good for my mental health too.
It's inspiring. So here's my last comment to you. You might find amusing. I haven't spoken about your music, and I should just tell you that I told you earlier on that I listened to your album. So it's a very good album, your current one, right?
Thank you.
And we've spoken about maybe pushback regarding the title. So here's my advice to you.
Yeah,
you should make a gospel version of the album, and then you call it Sunday Station. Use the same artwork, just put a Y after Sundas.
I love that. I'm going with that idea. The
remix album, Sunday Station.
I need to work on that one.
No, thanks so much for your time, man. Yeah, it's been like really fun, really inspirational, really good to see this a different side of you as well.
Thank you so much. And I really love what you said at the end. Actually, the Sunday Station. It kind of feels like you can actually turn these lemons into lemonade.
There we go.
Thanks for having me on the Z Flashback. It's been amazing. It's been real.
Bless.
Yeah.